Hi, Lou Castillo here. And in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about one of everybody's biggest fears, and that's talking to sellers on the phone. The question always is, how do I convince a seller to sell me their house cheap? And the answer is, you can't. If they don't want to sell their house cheap, you can't convince them. There's no amount of negotiating and silver tonguery that you could possibly use that's going to convince them to sell their house at 50, 60 cents on the dollar, which is where you need to buy the house. The way you do it is you work with a motivated seller. So when a seller calls you off of your marketing, we change them from prospect now to lead. So a lead has called you and you're going to talk to the seller. The goal here is not convincing them that they should sell you the house, but rather having them convince you that they're the right lead for you to work with. You don't want to be working with a whole bunch of leads that are never going to sell your house. So your job here is to pre-qualify your lead. And so there's a few objectives in the call. The first one is determine if they're motivated. Are they motivated or not? Because if they're not motivated, you might as well just pass. If they aren't motivated, what is that motivation and how strong is the motivation? The next thing you want to determine is whether or not they can sell you the house for less than they owe on the property. Let me say it differently. You want to make sure that you can pay more than they owe on the property. There we go. Let me say that correctly. Again, let me say it correctly. You want to make sure that you can pay more than they owe on the property. If you can only pay less than they owe, so supposing they owed $150 and you could pay $120,000 for the house, well, there'd be a $30,000 gap. That's not going to work unless you're going to do a short sale. And I strongly advise against short sales because there's an awful lot of work that goes to it and most of them don't go through. So I don't do short sales. So you want to make sure that you can pay more than they owe to the bank. So that's the main two objectives of the call. It's determining whether this is a lead worth pursuing or not. Now in there, of course, you want to build a lot of rapport and build trust with your lead because in fact, they may be a motivated seller that you can buy their house. And so you need to have that rapport and trust. Before you even get on the phone, you should put a big smile on your face because as soon as you put a smile on your face, your voice changes. It's happier. It's more upbeat. Even your own personal mood will change. And you want to come across that way to your prospects. You want them to feel that you are a nice person, easy to deal with. So the big smile on your face will come through over the phone. So the next step is to just start going through the call with them. And there's really three parts to the call. The first part is finding out the basics about them and then the basics about the house, how many bedrooms, baths, so forth. The second section is finding out the condition of the property. And the third section is finding out more about the financials around this property. And that's usually where you get some pushback if you start asking too many questions. But I want you to keep this in the back of your mind. It is your business. You do need to know the answers to those questions because we're going to be buying their house and we need to buy it properly. So we need answers to the questions. It is your business. So let's start at the beginning with the call. The first thing, like I said, is a big smile on your face. Hi, you introduce yourself or you've answered a call. They say, hey, I called off of your marketing. I'd like to sell my house. Well, great. Hey, my name is Lou Castillo. How you doing? Can I get your name? They give you your name and you write it down. The next thing is, sounds great. You say you have a house for sale? Let me have the address of that property. And they give you the address. Oh, another thing I always do too is say, and listen, I've been having some problems with my phone. Can you give me a number I can reach you back at in case we get disconnected? They give you a number. Are there any other numbers, like a home number or something else I might be able to try in case we miss each other? They give you the numbers. Okay, then you find the address of the property. The next thing is to have an open-ended question so that they can't do yes and no's. Because I want you to understand that a motivated seller, a lot of times is very nervous about speaking to an investor. You are an experienced investor and they're just a homeowner. And in fact, they know that they're in trouble. So they're fearful that you may take advantage of them and they may not have enough knowledge to be able to successfully negotiate with you. So you want to make them feel more comfortable and let them release their different fears and drop their walls so that they start to open up. And the way to do that is to ask some open-ended questions and let them just get comfortable speaking with you. So one of the first questions I say to them is, great, how about if you tell me about your house? And they may say, well, what do you want to know? Well, just take me on a virtual tour, basically, of your house. Walk me through it. Start with how many bedrooms and baths it has, and then take me through it. So they will describe the house however they want to. And then you write down as much information as you can for whatever they're telling you. So it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, it's 2 stories, it's brick on the outside, it's, whatever. And they'll tell you everything. I always try to say something nice about the house. Oh, it sounds like a nice house. Sounds like you've been there a long time. Sounds like you really have enjoyed it. Something. So say something nice about the property. Make them feel more relaxed. Now, I do want to warn you about a couple things. Some motivated sellers will just, as soon as you ask them a question, they will just kind of regurgitate everything to you and tell you their whole life story about what's going on in their life. And that's great, and that makes it easy. But most will have some sort of reservation and be quiet. Some will seem almost aloof. Some will try to give you these kind of answers. Yep, nope, yep, nope. Because they listen to enough lawyer shows on TV to know if you're going into a deposition, what do they always advise? Only answer the question asked. Don't volunteer any extra information. So that's kind of what they do. They answer exactly what you ask without giving any extra information. That doesn't mean they're not motivated. That doesn't mean that you're not building rapport. It just means that they're nervous. And so, like I said, they may be very quiet, very reserved, very aloof to you. And that's okay. The one thing I will tell you is I've never had a motivated seller become aggressive with me. Why are you calling me? Why are you bothering me? Why did I get this marketing piece? Who are you? What are you trying to do here? How do I know you're for real? These types of things don't come through, especially with that tone of voice. They're not aggressive. Motivated sellers actually want this to work. They just don't want to get taken advantage of, so they're careful. But they, in the end, want this to work. So they're not asking pointed questions to try and prove that you're a scam. What they want to prove is that they've done their homework and that you are for real. Okay, so they're describing the whole house, and you get as much information you can about that. And then I take it another step and say, oh, it sounds like you've lived there for a while. How's the neighborhood? And I'll tell you, the neighborhood's great, the schools are great, the kids are great, everything's great there. And so, wow, you've lived there 20 years. Did you have children grow up there? Yes. So there must be a lot of memories in this house. Oh, there's a tremendous amount of memories. The next question I ask is, so what makes you want to sell now? And so they've just got through telling you how wonderful everything is. And then you're saying to them a very logical question, why do you want to sell now? And so then they'll be like, oh, I have to tell you the truth. And then they get up with whatever is their underlying reason of what's going on. Now, that's not 100% of the time. I'm just saying that many times a motivated seller will then just blurt out the truth and tell you what's the underlying motivation. Others won't, so you just keep going. So the next section is to find out the condition of the house. So I do ask, what condition is the house in? And of course, the most common answer is, it's in great condition. And again, they're not lying to you. They're simply not seeing it. That's okay. But we can't operate off of their impression of the condition of the house. We have to get some more information. So the next things I do is ask them more specific questions. So I will ask them, we know the age of the house at this point, right? So if it's an older house, I'll ask them, when's the last time the roof was replaced? So they've lived there 20 years, it's a 30-year house, and they've never replaced the roof. What do you think? The roof needs to be replaced, right? Then I'll ask them about the kitchen. What upgrades have you done in the kitchen? What upgrades have you done in the bathroom? What kind of flooring do you have? If they have carpet, when's the last time the carpet was changed? If they have hardwoods, when's the last time the hardwoods were refinished? When's the last time the house was painted? And from those answers that you get, you will get some idea of how much money they've been putting back into the house. So if you calculate how old the house is, how long they've lived there, and how little or how much they've done to the house, you can kind of get some idea of what condition the house is in. You may not know exactly, but from that, you'll get some idea of the condition of the home. The next thing then is to get into what's the financials behind it. So first of all, is the house vacant or is someone living there? Are you living in there or are you renting it? If you're renting it, what rent are you getting on the property? Are the tenants on a lease? How long is the lease? When did they start the lease? How well do they pay? What kind of tenants do you have? Maybe the house is vacant. That makes it even better for us. There's usually more motivation and it's easier for us to deal with a vacant house. If they're still living there, then the next question I ask them is, so what is your plan? If you sell to me, what are you planning to do next? And this helps sometimes to get to the motivation, because they'll tell you, oh, I'm moving into an apartment. Oh, you're selling a house and you want to move into an apartment. What makes you want to move into an apartment? And you start to be willing to ask questions. And I know in polite company, a lot of times we don't like to ask too many questions. None of our business. But like I said before, this is your business. You need to keep digging down and finding out what's really going on in their life. So we found out the house, whether it's vacant or occupied, if they're renting it or not. The next thing I asked them, do you have a mortgage on the house? Yes. Who's it with? Bank of America. How much do you owe? Now here's a tricky one. So you'll have a seller that says, well, I don't see how that's relevant to you buying my house. You're going to pay off the mortgage, so it's really irrelevant how much I owe. Well, I can see where you might understand, where you might feel that way, but there's a lot of ways I buy houses. So the more information I have, the better the offer I can make to you. And you want me to get you the most I can for the house, right? So if you don't mind, let me have that information. And anyway, my closing attorney is going to need that information anyway to be able to pay off the house. And that's usually enough to get them passed. If that doesn't get them past that question, that's a red flag to me that maybe they're not really all that motivated. Because again, motivated sellers don't put up a lot of roadblocks. They may not be forthcoming with information, but they usually don't put up too many roadblocks. And here's a roadblock going up. But I'll keep going, because to me, you got to have 3 roadblocks and then we're kind of done. Unless you're just completely nasty to me. And then I said, okay, then I know you're not motivated. All right, so now they told you how much they owe on the property. The next thing I ask them is, what are your monthly payments? Does that include taxes and insurance? Are you on time with your payments? And what's more important here than the answer is how they answer. So here's what I mean by that. If I were to ask you, are you current on your mortgage? You would come back almost incredulous and say, yeah, of course. And then there's a quick answer. You don't have to think about it. But if the seller says to you, yeah, that's telling you that's not 100% true. Because first of all, you don't have to think about it. You know that your mortgage is being paid on time. There's no thinking about that. The second thing, so if there's a pause in there, they're not thinking about the answer. They're thinking about what they should tell you. Should they tell you the truth? Should they not tell you the truth? How can they word this? So that's what's going through their mind, not thinking about whether they made the last payment on time or not. So, and then that delay of, yeah, you can hear there's no confidence behind that. So I'll dig a little bit further and I would say to them, this is whatever day of the month. Let's say it's the 20th of the month. When is your mortgage due? The 1st? Yes. So did you pay your mortgage this month on the 1st of the month? No. Oh, when did you pay it? Oh, I paid it on the 12th. Oh, so you did pay it late this month. No, it's not late because it's not late till it's the 15th. Well, it was late on the 1st when you didn't pay it. The 15th is when they're going to charge you a late fee. But yes, it was late on the 1st. So do you normally pay after the 1st? Sometimes. Well, what would you say? Like last month, did you pay last month on the 1st? No. How about the month before that? Have you ever gone past the whole month? Have you ever gone where it's 30 days late? Have you ever had to pay the late payment? Have you ever gone 30 days late? Yeah. So what's causing you not to be able to pay it on the 1st? And again, what you're looking for here is motivation. The fact that they're willing to answer these questions that are a bit on the personal side tells you that they're somewhat motivated. But the answers to those questions can also indicate to you if and how much they're motivated. So that'll give you a good indication moving forward. So now they'll tell you all about how much they owe on the property. Great. And if they're really behind, you might want to ask something like, are you in foreclosure? Has the bank sent you any notices? Have they started making demands to you? And find out where they really are. Are you in any kind of bankruptcy? Find out what their financial situation is. Okay, great. If you get through all of this information and they still haven't given you really what's the motivation, then I just go and basically straight up ask them. I'll say, well, let me tell you what's so great about working with a real estate investor and what I do for you. When I'm buying your house, you'll see that there's no contingencies in there. There's no financing contingency. I'm going to pay cash. I can close quickly if you want, or I can take my time if you want, whichever is better for you. I'm not going to ask you to pay any closing costs. I'll pay them all. I'm not going to ask you for an inspection and then give you a bunch of things that you have to fix. There's no wood destroying organism report required. There's basically nothing you need to do. The price I'm paying is the price that you get, minus, of course, you got to pay off your mortgage, your taxes, and things like that. But there's no other hidden fees or commissions or anything like that. What you get is there. But obviously, I'm going to take this property and I'm going to bring it to its like new condition. And by the way, I say like new condition. I don't say, take this piece of garbage here, make it look like something, or take this really destroyed house that needs a lot of work and do something with it. I just say, bring it to its like new condition. And of course, I got to make up my costs, which would be much cheaper than any costs that you would have because I got people that can do it. So I'll tell them I got to recover my costs and of course, make a fair profit on it. And they go, I understand. So let me ask you, why are you calling me versus just calling a real estate agent, for instance? And then see what they say. They may say, well, I got your marketing. Oh, I understand that, but you have to realize that I'm looking to make a profit in this. So are you looking for a quick sale? Is that what you're looking for here? And they'll start to open up and justify why they're dealing with you. And sometimes you may never get what the underlying motivation is. It's very helpful if you do. And probably 8 out of 10 times that you're working on one of these deals, you'll get the underlying motivation. But every once in a while you don't. And oh well, that doesn't mean you can't do the deal. You just have to have a gut feel whether you think we can move forward or not. The next step, after I've gotten all that information, they seem to be working with me. And then I'll ask them, what are you wanting to get from this house? And they'll give me some number. Now, if I've had a chance, I'll look up how much the house is worth before I even get on the phone. If not, then I'm going to tell them when I get back on the phone. So the next step here is if they've given me a price that they're looking for, and I know that that's a crazy price, then I'll say to them, listen, let me be really honest with you. I'm not going to be anywhere near that number. And then just be quiet. It depends on how they react to that statement. That's going to tell you a lot. You just told them you're not going to be anywhere near their number. If they're not motivated, the next thing out of their mouth is, well, I have to get somewhere near there. I am maybe a little bit flexible, but I can't come off much. This is what I'm wanting to get. That's your non-motivated. Your motivated seller says something like, oh, well, where would you be at? If I just told them I'm nowhere near your number and you still want to hear my number, you're more motivated than you're letting on. So this is a good indication to me that they are motivated. And then I would say something like, well, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research, but I can just tell you that it wouldn't be anywhere near that number that you were asking. So would you like me to go ahead and go forward? Because I don't want to waste your time or mine, but if you're interested, I'll go ahead and make an offer on the property. Yes, I would like you to. Great. That means they're motivated. So I would I'll tell them I'll need about 30 minutes and then I'll get back to you. Is this the best number for me to reach you in about 30 minutes? Yes? Great. Then I hang up and I start doing all my research. I look at my comps and I figure out how much I think is going to be needed in repairs, and I come up with what is the right offer for this property. And then I will call them up and then I'll say, okay, listen, I did my research, and based on the other houses in the area, what I know about the area and what you've told me about your house, I think I will be in this range. And my range is always much lower than what they were expecting. Okay, so let's say, much lower than what my maximum is. So let's say, for instance, my maximum that I could pay on this house is $150, what we talked about before. I would say to them, I'm looking at probably coming in somewhere in the 120 to 130 range. Okay, even though I have plenty more room, I want to see how they react to that. If they say, well, no, I was hoping to at least get 160, that's great. So I'm at 150 is my top. They're hoping to get 160. And by the way, when somebody hopes to get something, they don't expect to get it. I hope to win the lottery. I don't expect to win the lottery. So this is great news for me. They were hoping to get 160, which means their expectation is somewhat lower. I said 120 to 130. I could pay up to 150. This is wonderful. Now I would schedule time to go out there and see the house. And that would be my next step, is seeing the house and then doing my final negotiations. By the way, Anytime that I can solve their problem, I know what their motivation is and I can solve their problem, I would position this whole thing in something like this. Well, I know that what you're trying to do is move out of the house and you're tired of the banks bothering you and so forth. So I'm going to be able to pay off your entire mortgage. The banks will never contact you again. And I can put about $20,000 in your pocket and then see where they go with that. See how that sounds? Now they know what they're going to walk away with in their pocket, and they know that their problem, which was the bank, is resolved. So anytime I can position it that way, I do, as opposed to give them just a straight number. And that's it. If the call has worked, in other words, we made sure that they were motivated, we made sure that we can pay more than they owe to the bank, and we've built some rapport with them, now the next thing is to go out there and actually see the property. But that's how you handle a seller call. It's simple, it's easy. Don't get nervous about it. And look, I always work off the worst case scenario because everybody wants to go to the worst case, right? So let's go. This is worst case. They ask you a question you've never heard of before and don't have a clue what the answer is. There's a very simple explanation to that. Wow, that's a great question. I've never heard that one before. And you may never have heard it before because this is your very first call. That's no problem. You're not lying. Let me talk to my partner, and your partner can be anybody, and I will get back to you on that. And then you do your research and you get back to them. Let's say the worst case scenario, which isn't going to happen, but I know for some of you, you start to imagine these demons out there. You're working with a seller that knows way more about real estate than you. You get yourself nervous, so nervous, you don't even remember your own name. And you're just making mistake after mistake after mistake on the phone, and you feel like you're coming across like a complete fool. Okay, it's terrible. I'm not going anywhere with this. Don't worry about it. Just hang up the phone. Boom, done. Okay? If you saw them in the grocery store 5 minutes later, they wouldn't recognize you and you wouldn't recognize them. So worst case scenario, you were embarrassed for a couple minutes on the phone, but you have no long-term lasting effects from this. It's all over. But what you do have is you have a practice. You've been able to do it. And now you can say, where did this call go wrong? What did I do wrong? And you can improve and practice. And that's what I used to do when I get off the phone. I'd say, where did the call go wrong? Where did I make a mistake? What question did I ask that opened Pandora's box? I should have done something different. Or a statement I made that opened Pandora's box. What could I have said differently so that that doesn't happen again in future calls? But the only way to get really good at this, really smooth at it, is by practice. So just talk to a lot of sellers. When you start getting leads in, most of them are not going to be good leads. They're going to go by the wayside anyway. So great. Use those as practice. Learn to talk to sellers. Build up your confidence. What a real motivated seller wants to hear is confidence from you. They want to know that you feel like you can do this. So the more sellers you talk to, the more confidence you'll exude. And that means the more contracts that you're going to get. Hope this has been helpful. I'll see you the next time around.